Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of Change. When I look at life, it is always changing, whether mine or whether somebody else's. If I look at life of every individual on this planet, everybody is undergoing a change as we speak. Do I have an effect on how other people lead their lives? Whenever I look at somebody else's life, I have a perspective to them. I have a perspective that they are ambitious, they are lazy, dull, sometimes people who are contented, sometimes people who are wise. So everything that I observe in other person's life gives me a perspective. Today, in this episode, we will talk about the change of our perspectives. Does changing perspective really change something? Do we really need a change of perspective? Today we have Sister Usha with us in the studio. She's the source of our spiritual wisdom. Let us welcome her to the show. Didi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Om Shanti.
First of all, when we listen to these words, perspective, one of the things that always strikes into my mind is everybody has a perspective. And probably that makes us special because each of us have a unique way of looking at things, seeing
definitely.
things. So, as much as we have this, we often question other person's perspective. Sometimes when there is conflict, sometimes there is misunderstanding, people often say, change your perspective. Put yourself in the other person's shoe. Go there, see things from the other perspective, from the other person's point of view. Change your view. Things will be simpler. What do you see? Do you think that this really simplifies relationships or ways of looking at things?
I would say, yeah, definitely. Because when I change my perspective, sometimes we become less reactive. It depends on which perspective I have adopted, whether it is positive or negative. If it is negative, seeing a situation, if I start reacting, then that may create so many complications in my life, with whomever I am, in others' life also, and that will create a lot of pressure and stress amongst us. So therefore it is said, change your perspective. Put yourself in the other person's shoe. So that when I change my perspective, means whenever this is said, change your perspective, it is mainly said towards adopting a positive perspective. So that we become less reactive, we try to understand situation as they are and act accordingly. So instead of being reactive, being proactive.
Yeah.
I may not be able to change any situation, but at least I can change my circle of influence.
When you say, I can change my perspective, what does it actually mean to change the perspective? Does it mean that, okay, whatever you are saying is correct? Is this the change of perspective? Or does it mean that I must really try to understand how you are thinking, how you are looking at things?
Yeah, if we are with people, definitely we have to try and understand the person in the way he is thinking or she is thinking, and then accordingly seeing from that angle as well. And then if you think that is not good, we can try to put our view, our perspective in front of that person so that maybe they can see from the angle that I am looking at that situation. Then the understanding will increase. Instead of just cutting somebody, you are wrong completely, what type of thoughts you have, this, that, so many other things which people may say, but that is not going to harmonize our relationship. That will definitely create a lot of misunderstanding. And then the bitterness would come in our relationship, which will create more complications. So, first of all, I have to understand their viewpoint, their perspective, and see the pros and cons between my perspective and their perspective, weigh them, and then we may try to make that person understand. I think in this thing, clarity of thoughts and proper communication is necessary. Because you may be right with your perspective. Others may be completely wrong. But if I do not have the clarity of thoughts and I do not have the communication skills to put my viewpoint in front of them in a humble manner, in a easy way, so that they can understand, then maybe the acceptance will be more easy for them also. Or they may also try to see the pros and cons of both things.
As much as I agree to this, it is often difficult to step into other person's shoes. As much as it requires a change of position, I would have to walk all the way from here to there. And sometimes your shoe size might be different than mine.
Yeah, you're right.
So definitely it is an uncomfortable position. And I have to take this extra mile, this extra effort to do this. Just to go at your place, to observe things from your point of view. Change of perspective involves this much of hard work that I need to do.
In management, I would say that in management, sometimes we have these exercises that there are some pictures which are projected, and in which from one side you can see it's a face of a female, from the other side you see it's the back of a lady, such pictures which has to. And whenever you project these pictures and ask people, what do you see? Their immediate reaction, because they may be seeing from one side, they will immediately say, oh, it's a face of an old lady. But then if I tell them, see properly, there is another image, you can see something else. I see something else, back of a beautiful lady, a young lady, not an old lady. So when they try to figure out, there are two images in this. So this is what happens with situations also. And that is why it is said, try to go into the other person's shoe. It's not that I have to go into that shoe and make myself feel comfortable in it. No.
Just to develop an understanding.
Yes. Just to develop an understanding and seeing from their angle the picture, then I can see maybe the beautiful side of it. Instead of that old lady, I can see the most beautiful side of it. And then I can agree. The same thing happens in life. Some people try to see the situation as the old face of a lady. And that really, oh, what a old lady. What are you doing with this picture? But then when we see from the other angle, I can see the beautiful lady, back of the lady, with long hair or maybe with a beautiful gown on
image,
it. Yeah. So nice. So in management, we have certain pictures which tells us to always see from both the sides. Just like a person. If I just take up a person, maybe. A person's personality is also so complicated. We used to understand this in management as human personality is like an iceberg. 10% is visible, 90% is below, which is not known. Maybe the person himself also does not know. And the iceberg also, from where I am seeing, maybe I know that 10% of the 10%, which is just 1%. His family members may be knowing the other side also of the person. So they know his complete nature also. So because they know that side. People in the society where he may be very helpful to people in the society, they know the other side. So out of the 10% which is visible, what we know of a person is just one side.
We do not know the person's all-round things.
All-round thing.
Oh.
So that's what the same thing which happens with the situations also.
Okay.
Whatever I see and understand is just maybe one part of it. And I'm trying to react, seeing that one part. So therefore, it is better to change your perspective. Means see from the other side. That may be more beautiful.
We often say this as a way of expression. It is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
We use it as a common notation of not knowing the whole picture, and yet we do not use it really inside. Yeah. This was one thing. There is other thing that I see is situations. Let's say there are things that are happening outside. When I see climate change, for instance, it is real, it is happening. Poverty, which is real, which is there in the world. There is social inequality, injustice, which is pretty visible. Also, lack of education. There is also religious polarization. A lot of social evils and problems that we as a society are dealing with. Whenever I look at those problems, whenever I encounter them, even if from a very distant point of view, I feel bad. I start feeling, grumpy sometimes, and I feel, this is such a hopeless world. Sometimes there is a dejection. So here, change of perspective, does it help? Does it really matter if I change my perspective at looking things of problems like this?
What happens? There are so many problems in the world also. We all know about it. At times, we need to accept. There is nothing we can do. So it is better to accept. Because if you can't accept, as you said, you'll feel grumpy, you'll feel upset, you'll feel dejected. You'll have so many thoughts about it. And the tendency may be to go into a negative direction. And losing hope, fear, all these negative traits may develop. So at times we have to, knowing all this is going on in the world, we have to accept this is part of nature. But let me see the beautiful world also. Everything is not bad. If I see that in the world, in nature, there are so nice, beautiful scenes also coming up. We go to the mountains and we can see the glaciers and everything. We know the warming is there. The glaciers are melting, definitely, due to global warming. But just by complaining that, I won't be able to do anything. So let me just appreciate the beautiful side of the glaciers and the mountains and the greenery and everything. Maybe I won't lose hope by seeing that. Otherwise, people land in depression because they have so many negative thoughts, one after the other, when they cannot accept.
It is also one of the things that I would like to ask. Recently, I was reading an article. It was recently published. And it spoke about the burnout syndromes in NGOs. A lot of NGOs came up which wanted to work for social upliftment, for social causes, climate change, poverty alleviation, social equality, a lot of other things. But slowly, many NGOs also suffered burnouts. People who started those NGOs could not sustain it because of the negative pressure that they had to deal with, especially the problems that they had to deal with. And many younger people who come up to work in the NGO sector find it very challenging because they lose out on hope. They lose out on the positivity that keeps them going because they do not see solution. They do not see their change of perspective about trying to help things are actually not transforming things.
Yeah. What happens that because when they come out to work in the society, they feel they are so enthusiastic initially that they may be able to do some difference maybe. But when things are not working in the way they had thought, then because they're constantly seeing that, and finally, instead of that enthusiasm which they had in the beginning, slowly that comes down. And as it comes down, because they're constantly looking at that problem, thinking about that problem, trying to find out solution which is not there, and they are trying to adopt a method, but something or the other comes up from this problem only, from this situation only. So constantly thinking and pondering upon it definitely is just draining their energy, mental energy. So that's why they are meeting with the burnout. They have to just leave. And then finally sometimes they'll end up in depression because of it. Because constant thoughts on it, they're giving their energy to that negativity. And they're absorbing the negativity from that situation, from that problem. Constantly absorbing through their thoughts. So what happens? They are burnt out first, and then the whole NGO is burnt out.
Yeah. So slowly there is lack of motivation, there is no support mechanism, there is nobody to be a leader or to guide them properly. So these things happen. One of the things that I would also like to say, even though it is not a very funny way of looking things, but many times people, friends who work in the NGO sector, people who work for social causes and changes in the society, whenever they fail, whenever they took a decision to change their lifestyle and to change their perspective and do something else. Somebody who has a high-paying job, resigned from his job, now goes to an NGO so that he can bring about a change. And when he or she
can't do it,
or they feel that after 1 or 2 years, they think that no, this is not working out. Many people point fingers at them, saying that, oh, you wanted to bring about a change in the world. What happened to that? So people make fun of them.
Yeah. And they are already going through a frustration.
Yes.
And when people make fun of them, just imagine their mental state, how it becomes.
Yeah. Sometimes making fun is a different story, but sometimes there is a hush-hush conversation that happens at the back. People don't talk in front of them, but at their back they say that, oh, he wanted to go and do this. She wanted to start an NGO. Look what has happened to her. If only she could have just dealt with her normal job, things would have been much better. So, change of perspective here is a very, very dangerous prospect for many of them. Because I cannot bring about a change. So, my next question is precisely about this. By just changing my perspective, can I really bring about a change? Is it really possible?
Actually, I may not be able to bring about a change in the situation or whatever is happening or whatever is going on. But when I bring about a change in my perspective, definitely I can safeguard myself. I can safeguard my mental state. And instead of losing that enthusiasm, I sometimes find another ray of hope from it itself. That's why it is said, be positive. Any failure is not a final failure. Failure is only failure when I stop trying. But when I just find another dimension, it is always said, when one door closes, another opens up. So when I see the new opening, that gives me a ray of hope. And maybe I become enthusiastic. Instead of getting into that frustration, I may find a new hope and I start trying things in a different way. Maybe that will work. So it is basically for the safeguard of my own mental state. Change your perspective. I cannot change the situation, but I can at least protect myself with a positive perspective. In Bhagavad Gita, very beautifully it is said in the 2nd chapter that ups and downs, cold and heat, praise and defamation, all these are parts of life. Heat or cold, anything. There are two aspects constantly in people's life or in the world, constantly. Just as water does not have its own shape, but in whichever mold we put it, it will take the shape of that mold.
Yes.
Similarly, the situations are there. Sometimes it is ups, sometimes it is down, sometimes again we are up on the wave, sometimes we are down completely. So this constant change is there. The wave is there. But it depends on which mold I adopt for my thinking processes. Because that does not have its own shape. So it depends upon which mold I put my thought process in to glide with these ups and downs so that I do not lose hope completely. I do not lose that enthusiasm also. I may not be able to bring the change there, but at least still I won't feel a failure with my own self. I constantly have that energy because my thoughts are in that positive mold. My perception is in the positive mold. So that is what is making a difference.
Very beautifully put, Didi. Most of us think that when we want to bring about change outside, the first thing that we actually need is the change of perspective inside.
Yeah.
And if we do not safeguard ourselves, then how do we safeguard anybody else?
Yeah, definitely.
For a protector to protect someone, the first thing is he or she needs to protect
themselves.
oneself.
Yeah. In the airline also when we travel.
Yeah.
Oxygen mask will come down, please.
Put masks to yourself first before helping others. Very nice. So the change of perspective is really about looking at things differently.
Yeah.
And it is possible to change things, but first, stick to yourself, safeguard yourself. That will help you much better. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you so much.
Friends, that was Sister Usha with us in the studio. So much can change by changing the perspective. Even though we might think that it might not bring about a change in the world as we speak today, or it might not change in the situations that we are in today, but certainly it safeguards us. Certainly it helps us to be the change maker. Certainly it creates a better safety, makes me an able change maker if not anything, or at least keeps my hope alive. That candle still burns. Let us be that light. Let us be that change. Thank you very much for watching this episode. We will see you again. Till then, take care.